Hello, all you cosmic travelers and wanderers. This is Darlene Grift and K. Melissa Waterman, inviting you to join us today in our episode of Expansion from Within, Exploring Multidimensionality.
Let me introduce you to my friend and dear colleague, Darlene Grift. She is a lifetime experiencer, a medical intuitive, and a multidimensional mediator for over 35 years. She's also an author, an artist, a teacher, and a mentor for spiritually invested people.
And K. Melissa Waterman is my friend and colleague, and she's an intuitive mentor, a spiritual teacher. She also works with energy on many levels. In the past, Melissa has worked with Dr. Joe Dispenza on his research team.
Join us on our journey of meeting multidimensional beings, exploring what it means to be human, and expanding our spiritual evolution. Today, we're going to talk about healers and maybe energy workers and practitioners in general. My first question today is, what does this word mean, healers? Like as a label, what do you think of when someone calls you a healer? What happens for you?
The first thing that used to happen to me is I would reject that because it didn't feel accurate. It could be ego-based, with some people that say, oh, I'm a healer. It boasts who they believe themselves to be. Because I believe that the body is fully capable, that innate wisdom is fully capable of healing ourselves. We may be facilitators, practitioners, guides, mentors, teachers to others, but the healer title felt a little not me, right? It felt like it wasn't really somebody that I'd want to identify with. And that could be timelines, past timelines for me as well, of where you got crucified for being a healer. You know, I have to take that into consideration. I've come more to adjust to it because for me now, it feels like, okay, if you want to call me that, I know what that is for me. Right. It doesn't mean anything that I thought that it meant or what it felt like that was uncomfortable to me in the past. So if you want to call me a healer, I'm not going to spend time saying something different about that. It just is what it is.
Yeah. And I think even in my intro that we did a few weeks ago, I said I work with energy. That feels clear and good to me. That feels like the truth. The word healer for me sounds like I'm doing something. Mm-hmm. That I'm the Melissa, the independent I, Melissa, has some ability that the rest of us don't have, just like you said. You know, it doesn't ring true for me. I'm not the one doing the healing. If something does happen that's healthy for someone, I'm happy for them, but I think it's something that's come through me. And as a Reiki practitioner years ago, getting attuned to Reiki, the whole idea of a hollow reed feels right. It feels like, yeah, I'm the reed and it just comes through, it being divine, light, guided energy. It's a difficult word for me still. I'm happy that you've come to resolution with it because it's heartening to hear that. I feel to struggle with the word with people is a real waste of time. So it's true. I don't want to get into a discussion with each person that might call me a healer.
In talking to anyone, if they ask me, that I would never say, oh, I'm a healer. It just feels uncomfortable. I wouldn't claim it. If somebody wants to call me that, that's okay, but I wouldn't claim it because it doesn't feel accurate.
Yeah, I'm with you. I wanted to talk about the word helper. Is it a better word? Do you think it's a better label?
No, I think that's diminishing, right? We're somewhere in between. Facilitator, mentor, guide, those seem like they're like in that genre of identification in a way that isn't too inflated and isn't too diminished.
And even the word energy worker has some negative connotation for me. It's only because of society and the New Age movement that everybody's an energy worker. I'm not in resonance with that for some reason, although I work with energy. Somehow saying I work with energy is better than calling myself an energy worker.
I think a lot of these labels are coined and an energy worker. We all are in some way. In leading our life, we're all energy and we're all working. So aren't we an energy worker? Right.
Yeah. I wanted to talk also a little bit about how working with energy or being a healer or having a practice with people that's unseen, that's not as easy to quantify or qualify as the allopathic medicine would appear to be with the studies that they have at their fingertips. I want to talk about the types of energetic work that happen on the planet. Some of the things I had thought about were, there's all kinds of healing touch and non-touch healing methods. Like Reiki, you don't need to touch the person's body, but some Barbara Brennan's healing touch is all about healing through touching the body. There's also, there's shamanic practitioners, and there's also palm readers and tea leaf readers. I use tarot cards as part of my intuitive practice with people, but I don't consider myself a tarot reader because I don't do a spread. I do something different with tarot cards. They're useful to me in helping the messages come through to help me see what's happening for a person. And then there are mediums, psychics, channels. And then there's the physical world, right? There's massage therapists and PT, physical therapists, nutritional counsels. And so there's so many different ways to help a human body. And I just wanted to list the various modalities that we're talking about just to give people something to anchor to. When you're receiving Reiki, say, do you need to believe in it to have it work?
That's an interesting point. I remember having discussions early on with agreeing that the placebo effect works. If you believe it, it doesn't matter what may be the modality or the technique or the product. If you believe that it works and you have a intention that it works, a lot of times it works. That energy work that we're talking about, I think if you're on the table and you are now there's more virtual energy work being done than there ever has been. And I think that's progress in some way for us to understand that we're all energy and we're all connected. So if somebody 300 miles away from you is putting you in the intention to work with you at that time, even if you're not in front of them, that it does work. They get something from that. They feel something changes. But that person, I believe, also needs to be open, available, allowing, accepting of whatever that is without a qualification. Oh, I need to feel something. I need to know that it's happening. That, I think, is in some way their belief system of believing that they want it to work or their intention is to work is important. I've had people that have experienced this and said, well, I didn't feel anything. Nothing happened. They may not, but it doesn't mean that nothing happened. But their belief system keeps them stuck in the mindset that I have to feel something or I have to know what it is.
So trust is, I want to call it a frequency that helps match with the healing. The trust may open a door so that there is a more complete experience. But it's not 100% necessary because we know there's tons of people that don't believe at all and yet have miraculous things happen to them when their family bugs them to go to this healer they know, this Reiki person or some other modality, and then they are like, oh my gosh, it's so much better, and they don't have any trust. So it's not key, it's not essential, and yet it seems like it's a big help if there's trust, if there's some acceptance. Do you think it has to do with vibration, that there's a matching that occurs?
I think there's a matching that occurs so that it's actually better off if you walk into an energy worker or healer or anybody that's doing it, that hands are not on so that you can't really feel what's going on. I think it's better that you work in not knowing anything, because then you are open and available for whatever happens. That's life in general. When you walk into something, is to not have a preconceived idea that you might be disappointed about. It's like accept what it is and allow it. And I think with any kind of modalities, it is a ripple effect. It's not about that hour session that you've had. It's what happens in the days, the hours, the days, the weeks that follow, as it ripples through your energy field and your body.
Right. Something's just come to my mind. I remember reading in Dr. Joe Dispenza's second book that was called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. There's a small paragraph, barely mentioned, about a study of people that were being prayed for. I don't know, let's say 1995. I'm making up the little details. And they didn't know who they were praying for, except that they were people that were ill. And they were just doing standard praying, saying, I see this group of people as healed, and just praying that they would be healed. And this study went on for maybe 30 years. Once the study was released, they found that they were praying for people that had already, like many years earlier, had been ill, like in the 70s. And that the people that were prayed for, the group that was prayed for, substantially got better. And the people that weren't prayed for didn't. Even though this was a future praying, right? This was way beyond. The people had had their illness and recovered from it before these people even started to pray for them. And I remember reading that little passage and being like, it was a mind blower, because I was not familiar yet, or as familiar as I am, with the idea of non-locality and the idea that time is not in a continuum. It's so interesting to me that we can heal people without having to be in their presence or change their energy structure. If we're not in their presence, we can send energy, we can pray. The whole idea of healing people non-locally is a newer idea that we're coming into agreement with. But praying for people has been going on. Begging God for someone's health to please improve is not new.
No.
And this little study, it was a very, it wasn't a substantial study. It was a relatively, it wasn't thousands of people that got prayed for, but it still really showed that there was a difference, that we could affect the past with our thoughts and our intentions.
So prayer is an interesting topic around energy, because what are we really doing when you pray? You're leaning on something bigger. You're asking for something bigger to come in and maybe intervene, but set matters straight, open up the energy paths for that person's innate wisdom, maybe to heal. The gift of prayer is the connection of what opens in any kind of prayer or supplication, or even in energy work. When somebody's doing Reiki or whatever, it, like you said in the beginning, it is not your energy. You are not the healer doing that. There is divine energy coming through you, or that person's higher self, or their guidance system or whatever is coming through you as you being the director. You're the conduit of it. It's the same thing with prayer. Like prayer and energy work feel very connected to me.
And again, it's about the intention and what kind of frequency that intention is putting out, and how it's matching with the soul's purpose, with the alignment with that person's process.
Yes.
We talk about health crisis.
There's a lot of people in health crisis these days that I'm working with. And what I can say about that is on a regular basis, is that if you're in a health crisis, the likelihood is, it's been labeled the dark night of the soul. It's been labeled what I see it as is it's the opportunity for you to be your own healer. Because in the crisis, there's so much out there now, whether that's medical or alternative or energy or all these modalities that are laid before us, in a huge spectrum of that. When people go down the rabbit hole of what do I want to do, medical or alternative, or do I want to do both? Because combination can work. It's not about discarding any of that, but it is about discernment in you speaking up for what do you want to happen. In a cancer patient, do you want chemo? And if you saying okay to that, then which one? You investigating which one feels the best for you, given your opportunity or options. How do you support that? Do you go and you say, I want an infusion, I want a vitamin C infusion, I want to take supplements, I want to go to an energy person to help me move the toxicity through? Like, those are all the possibilities that you have without giving up your sovereignty and your authority over your body. That feels in a health crisis that's really one of the more vital things. It's not necessarily the outcome. It's the process of you getting there.
I think illness is a lesson in that regard then.
Yes. As I see it, it's a culmination of possibly lifetimes of not standing up for yourself, as well as this present lifetime of whatever helped to move the emotional level to become stuck, or the spiritual level to become compromised in some way that leads you to a health crisis.
Yeah. I love the idea that we have many choices. We can get acupuncture and we can take chemotherapy or do some allopathic remedy, and then also do homeopathic remedy, and also get a shaman involved. And
yeah, it's all of it.
We have so many choices at our fingertips regarding how we manage our own health.
Yes. And the interesting thing too is getting caught in the loop in your own healing process of doubt. That's something that I see that clients need to move through, is their own self-doubt about what they're doing and not trusting themselves. That goes back to either what we've talked about before, about you might need a tool to decide, okay, I got these 3 options. Which one does my body want? That could be kinesiology, it could be ruins, it could be, you could do a spread on the tarot cards of where is my alignment with the best possibility for me, the best option for me. Some people really need tools to do that and not depend on a doctor or even an alternative practitioner, because they have different lenses of how they've been taught and what they believe to be true for that person, because it's true in their mind, may not work for the person.
Right. I want to talk about tools like kinesiology and ways to enhance our abilities to trust ourselves, and in some way to check on the practitioners that we're going to use. There are practitioners that are not in alignment with honesty.
They may have an agenda. That's one thing that can happen with a practitioner, but that if you have a hole that you haven't cleared in yourself and you have somebody that comes in that has that same hole, not much gets done. Because you're in that space of emptiness, there isn't any more information, there isn't any healing, there isn't anything that can happen in a big way in there, because there's nobody that has that tools or information for that hole to heal.
Right.
And for some of these practitioners, some of these energy workers, anybody that's doing anything that is not allopathic. Allopathic has a sense of stability because it's been around forever and it's proven scientifically in some way usually, and it's got all this data and they have years of college. Some of these practitioners that are coming in that may not have that behind them, that they can get a certification in one day of being able to do something. They may not have done their own work to heal the holes that they may have that they bring into a session. And so there's a lot of projection that can happen. there's a lot of negativity that can happen. And I've had people come to me and say, is this accurate? Where they went to a practitioner of some sort that says, oh, you're going to die in 2 years from COVID. That feels unconscionable to me, to have somebody proclaim that for somebody, because those words will stick. The death process, that you're going to die, or you're going to be ill, or this is the way that you're going to die, or any of those negative aspects that come out that are scary or fearful to who they're talking to, that warrants conversation and a lot of discernment in who you go to and what you're willing to take in and what you're not.
It's a reasonable rule of thumb that if it's negative, if it's very negative, if there's any shoulds, or if there's a bossiness or a pressure, it might be good to turn around and leave. That energy doesn't feel in alignment. Channeled information that comes that feels oppressive or particularly frightening, like fire and brimstone comes to my mind, or that, you better do better. You better pray harder, work harder, be better. That doesn't feel in alignment with the divine source energy.
Yeah,
Seems
very
like a
negative
reasonable-
or controlling. It is not about that. It opens the possibility for somebody to say yes or no. That's what I see as healing about. You bring in a piece of new information, you work with somebody, you share energy, you pray for them, you do whatever, but it opens the channel for them to accept or not.
Can we talk a little bit about kinesiology as a tool to help people discern?
Kinesiology for me was the avenue into all the healing, and I still do it. I mean, I'll find myself testing in the middle of the night of something that comes up. In fact, I had a minor surgery that they put me out. This was years ago, and the nurse had told my mother, she said, I don't know what she was doing, but her hand was pushing against the bed over and over and over again. I was like, oh yeah, my subconscious was probably testing. Are you doing it right? What are you doing? That type of thing, even though I had no awareness of it. Testing or kinesiology can be done in so many ways because it's a direct access to your innate wisdom. So whether that is muscle testing on someone as a surrogate, because you can't trust yourself to do the finger testing or the opening and closing of the fingers. For some people, they can stand and hold something or think of something, a concept, and ask yes or no. And if their body goes forward, it's usually a yes. And if it goes backward, it's a no. Some people have to get on their toes to make that more definitive for them. But there's so many ways to connect to the body through muscle testing to get an accurate answer that you can start to trust. The pendulum is also another way for some people. It's a direct contact with your body. And it's not about the control level that I've seen some people with it, that they pull that pendulum out of their pocketbook or whatever, and it's spinning already because they know what it's going to say. It's not like that. It's about starting from a place of neutral. You put yourself in neutrality and you ask the question.
Right. And it's also a beautiful question to ask, am I clear for testing?
Yes.
Because if the answer is no, there's some things you need to do before you can get straight answers. That's very important with kinesiology. A little trick that I found with muscle testing with my arm, if you have a big mug and you fill it with water and you hold your arm out, the weight of the water, like you can hold your arm out and hold the mug without a problem. If you ask a question and the answer is no, it will make you weak. And so you'll lose the strength. You won't drop the mug, but you will see a definitive drop in your arm. Sometimes when you're asking on your own and your arm feels weak, you're like, well, is it really weak? Did I just do that? But the mug makes it kind of stable. It's like, oh,
Yes.
yeah, that was a down. Oh, that wasn't a down. That's just a little trick I learned recently that might be helpful to
That's
people.
great. Trust is a big thing with people. Doubt and trust in anything that for some people, it's everything in their life. They doubt whatever is being shown to them or whatever is coming up. But for others, they need that assurance, and it'll build that confidence, and it builds that muscle of confidence and will and trust.
Right. I think that's all I have for today. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
The Evolve's perception of healers is that we are all healers. It is our right to be a healer. It's about evoking the internal or the healer within, which actually, and now that I'm thinking why they're bringing that up, in July, I'm doing a workshop on evoking the healer within in Vermont. And it came up last night through the Evolves once that is completed, once I do that, to see if I could do something on a Zoom or so that it wouldn't have to be in person. So we'll see how that workshop goes. The Evolves are very desirous of humanity becoming their own healers, because if we do, then we won't get the stuck places that we have that creates health crisis. We will trust our bodies. We will be in tune with our bodies more. We didn't come into this lifetime to live a spiritual life without a connection to our physical form. There was a reason why we chose to come into a physical form, to learn about it, to how to manage it. And that information is going back into the field of who we are in a human body. How do we manage that? How do we become guided in a way, spirituality wise, right? How do we bring in our spiritual parts of ourselves to help our health?
That's great. Well, thank you for today. And I have a few announcements to make as usual. If you want to contact Darlene, you can do so at soulunion.com. You can sign up to attend the Cosmic Travelers live session on the third Sunday of each month through soulunion.com. During this hour plus meditation, the Evolves answer questions, they give participants interactive information, and much more. Also, there is a Cosmic Travelers Facebook page. You can search for it in groups. You can contact me, Melissa Waterman, through livingwellbeing.net. Please ask questions. We would love to address your questions in an upcoming episode.
Thank you, everyone. And remember, you know more than you know.